Hello, everyone. I'm Marina Jurica. Can we get a round of applause for those teasers? They are amazing films. I love that they said we are asking more of our oceans than ever before, but folks, plainly, we're asking more of this earth than ever before. And I'm so happy to be here with this incredible panel, and they are going to introduce themselves. But as you heard, I work for KCBS and CBS, and I tell very important stories about empowering people so that everyone knows, with my research in paleoclimatology, that we can learn from the past and we can all move forward into a future of sustainability if we do it together and if we do it now. Patrick?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm Patrick Weiland. I'm the president of Intuitive Content, the executive producer of Hope in the Water, creator with my team there. We work in the unscripted space. We do everything from food, to television, travel, television, to documentary and other programming.
Hi, everybody. How's it going? Oh my gosh, a shout out. My name is Patty Gonia. I am an environmentalist, a drag queen, a professional gay person this month. Happy Pride Month, everybody. Happy Pride. And that is me, and I feel very lucky to be up here with these incredible people. And let's give it up for Hollywood Climate Summit. Come on. Yes.
Hey, hey. Thank you so much for that seated ovation as we came in. That was incredible. I like that you did get a whistle and a shout out too over here. I don't want this room to be quiet. I want you guys to show your passion and be excited. My name is Jonathan. I'm the better looking property brother. And the other one, he has a baby. He keeps using his baby as an excuse, but he wanted to be here. We produce reality television, unscripted television in every genre. We have 15 series in production, and we made it a mandate to showcase technologies that are good for the planet and good for people. And we also manufacture a lot of products that we try to make affordable for everybody as well. So it's a passion project of ours to make sure that climate comes first. Thank you.
I'm Baratunde Thurston. I am storyteller across a lot of different media, focused on tales of interdependence, how we relate to tech, how we relate to each other. I have a project called How to Citizen. Citizen is a verb. And how we relate to nature. I've collaborated with Patrick on Hope in the Water, and I'm the host and executive producer of another PBS series called America Outdoors, which features stories of a wide variety of humans and their deep connection to the natural world of which we are an incredible part. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Bonnie Wright, and my whole life from a very young age has always been in the world of storytelling. Unscripted is a whole new genre for me. I come from a very scripted world, to the point you couldn't even ad-lib a line on some of the productions I was in. So I've really enjoyed this new genre, and have enjoyed it with my dear friend, Patty. And I'm so pleased to be here, so thanks.
Give them a round of applause. So unscripted entertainment is a very broad bucket that encompasses everything from documentary series to competition shows, home renovation, travelogues, science programming, and that's just to name a few. Now, what are the different opportunities that you all speak about climate and sustainability in this unscripted medium versus how people usually view storytelling through scripted lenses?
Who wants to go first?
Bonnie, that sounds like you.
Oh, no, okay.
Come on.
I think we all want to be seen, whether we're just in the darkroom of the audience or we're seeing ourselves reflected back at us. So I feel when I personally look to unscripted television and the power it has for me, I think it takes me to places and makes me realize that whilst we have so many differences, we can also share so many similarities. And I feel like that in that space, as the storyteller, you can really move and shift people's perspectives. So I feel all genres have their own kind of power in their own way, but I guess in my only experience is this first experience of our show. Everyone, it just felt like we were out there doing the work. We were meeting people in real time, and we were bringing it to you in real time in a way, even if it could come out later. It feels very raw and fresh, and it feels like we're giving them the microphone to tell their story how they want to tell it. And I think that's really important when we look at also changing ways that we've done things in the past that have been wrong, in the way that history or story has been shifted and changed and the narrative has been changed. I feel like we give power back to the person that we're handing the microphone to.
Hear, hear. I second that, and I think there's a implicit premise to a lot of what the power of story is. And that is that the reality we think we live in is mostly just a story we tell ourselves about the reality we live in. And so when we acknowledge humbly that our experience of this world is mostly through mediation, through what a teacher, a parent, a pastor, a friend, an algorithm told us is true, then it puts a lot of pressure on that story. But it also liberates us to tell a different one, to find a different one. And we're living in a time where we're subjected to a story of division, dysfunction, despair, and other words that begin with the letter D, because alliteration is very powerful. And we can find on a road trip along the West Coast, we can find in property, we can find in not just the month of Pride, but all of them, right? We can find hope in the water, where most of the stories of waters and of our communities is really tragic. And so we're unlocking something that's present, emphasizing something that is under highlighted, because the incentive structure in the larger story universe drives us apart from each other, drives us apart from our relationship with this earth.
And the sad and unfortunate thing is that narrative of how we shouldn't change things, how we need to stick with what it's intentional. And one of the things that really got me on this entire journey, I did a PBS documentary about this secret war against renewable energy companies from fossil fuel utilities, and it was because of the disinformation campaigns that drive me nuts. And so there is this air of doom and gloom. People do think that this is the end, like there's nothing we can do, it's too big for me. And I think it also takes an opportunity for people to breathe and laugh and realize that there is a lot of good stuff happening. There are this room is filled with incredible people who want to do good. Watching content as well, like your series, that is fun and enjoyable. We are living in an era right now where there are so many incredibly exciting advances, so many incredible technologies that are going to change everything. I literally just came from a conference, the ARPA-E conference. It's radical new technologies that will innovate how we power our cities, how we power homes, how we process water. There are so many incredible things happening that we just have to keep pushing. The voices are growing. The loudest people tend to be the ones that don't want to change. We need to show them that there are more of us who do want to change and find ways to get that message in front of people.
I think the power, too, of unscripted television is that the audience gets to see themselves and they get to relate to that. And it's aspirational, whether you're doing a home renovation or a travel show or a food show. People get to see themselves in that and really relate to it, and the more authentic that is. And I think that that's where you can carry that message about climate, about sustainability. And when people can connect on that level where they see themselves, that's where our common humanity comes in. And it's in that power of that storytelling where you get to draw those connections. That's where I find we really seek those out, because those are the magic moments. We didn't set out to do a policy show. I mean, we had themes and policies, but we were out to tell the stories of remarkable people who are out around the world, who live in communities that can create sustainable, secure food systems, but also at the same time improve the water quality and, fight back against all the extraction that has been happening in their communities. And in that power where you get to connect with those people, you really can see yourselves and you're rooting for them. It's that David and Goliath. It's those stories of people that are truly inspiring. And people like Baratunde really were able to go into these communities for us and act as witnesses and help us tell those stories. And we're really grateful for that.
And I feel like when somebody sees somebody in DC making a speech, most people tune it out. Yeah. They're not interested. But when
it's usually a bad speech.
Yeah, well, or a bad person. So
there are no bad people, but there are very bad speeches.
Misguided people. But I do think when you see a story coming from your neighbor, from your backyard, from your community, from someone who works in your industry, all of a sudden it's something that hits closer to home. And with Unscripted, nothing is closer to home than watching and loving a show that's in your kitchen or that's in your living room. And I cannot emphasize how powerful unscripted television is in that way.
Definitely. Patty?
Yeah, I love what you said about witness. I think that's a really important word for us here. I think what I'd add to it too, in addition to witness, is curiosity and play. I think so much in these worlds, sets are designed for things to be predictable, for things to happen. And I love about Unscripted is that there's so much that's possible. You get to play, you get to learn, you get to be a curious learner, and I love that. So that's why I love Unscripted.
Yes, and it's so important if you hear all of these stories, it's a common thread that all of us share because climate affects everybody on this planet. It's not just one person or a group of people, it's everybody, and it's finding that common thread. It's about bringing that hope into those homes, into those viewers' backyards so that they are empowered and can make a difference. And that goes right into my next question because I want us to dive a little deeper about the importance of localizing climate stories and the impact it has on our very local communities, because that's what it's all about. When somebody finds out that their next door neighbor, is not going to be able to go into the water, or they're going to lose their business because water levels are rising, then they're going to get impacted and they're going to think about it and they're going to talk about it. And so what has all of your motivation been for exploring all of these local individual stories, and how does local climate change effects and solutions factor into your creative decisions or your messaging?
I'm motivated by being pissed off. That's like, for me, when I read these stories or I see something that's happening and I get pissed off because I don't like it when somebody who has an advantage situation abuses that power, changes legislation, lobbies so that something happens that's going to affect a community that doesn't have that kind of political or financial might. And so for me, that's a big thing, is what platform can we offer? Ours happens to be television. Ours happens to be the products that we create. And so speaking at conferences like this, finding a way that we can get through to somebody, but it all comes back to being pissed off. Some people can relate.
I think we're also on the precipice. Local journalism is on life support in this country. Middle of America, you go into small towns, the newspapers are gone, the television stations have been gobbled up, and just repeat other stuff. And local stories and local journalism is truly on that life support. And unscripted television is an opportunity for us to use entertainment to try and get some of that messaging and to connect to those communities. But I do know, I live in Minneapolis, and the people in farm communities in Minnesota have more in common with the regenerative agriculture and the most advanced, or what they would call woke, in California. But there's messaging out there that we're all separate and that we shouldn't listen to each other. But I know we have more in common with each other. And telling local stories and going in and listening and being present and meeting people where they're at, and then allowing them to listen to them, to hear them and share their stories, they see themselves in other people. And I think we can help draw, I think it's part of our role is to try and connect people and help us see each other's common humanity, because we do have more in common. We're being sold a message, and it's not by accident that we have more differences than we actually have in common. It's a big lie that is out there.
That deeper connection is so imperative.
I'm sometimes motivated by rage. Thank you, Jonathan, for naming that. Yeah. Angry people, not anonymous. I'll put my name on that. And I'm motivated by people's attachment to place. There's a deep sense of pride and belonging in Hope in the Water, and especially with America Outdoors. I've got to go to a lot of places I have not been to in specificity before. And you find that people are proud of their mountains and their rivers like they're proud of their sports teams, more so, because they haven't been subsidized to make a billionaire or trillionaire. And so when there's loss, you feel that loss with those people. And sometimes, what extra motivates me is the discovery of an unexpected connection. So by brief story, we did a segment on Tangier Island in the Chesapeake Bay. This is a very, very conservative community by some measures, among the Trumpiest based on voting records. And that island's disappearing because of rising seas, because we kind of broke the planet. Now, visiting there, I spent the day with the mayor And he took me to a graveyard that was basically submerged and told me the story of having to exhume his own ancestor to put that person in his backyard, and to distractingly move a clock around as I tell an emotional story. Like all of that happened. Thank you. But he cried. He got very, very teary-eyed about this sense of loss. In the same season, different episode, we're on the South Fork of the Salmon River with the Shoshone-Bannock people, who have a sense, as many indigenous people do, of all our relations being every form of life, and the salmon are siblings. We were supposed to film a ritual salmon hunt. We couldn't because the salmon are being cooked in their own home. And they wanted to call off the shoot. We can't do it. And they were in mourning and in tears. And for the audience who sees both of those, they see that common humanity. They feel that sense of loss. And then in other stories, you find the hope and the transition, the family in Minnesota, northern Minnesota, who's like basically training up a new forest to take the place of the forest that will die because the heat bands are moving higher. And so there is this mourning and this loss, as well as this restoration, this rejuvenation, this rebirth, and people's connection to that, this family relationship that folks have with their local environment, with their definition of what it means. Like a Mainer without lobster who becomes an oyster farmer, that's a whole identity shift. That's not just climate change. That's like, what am I? Who am I? What are my kids gonna do? Not what the generations before me did. And so in that level of local story, you're getting beyond story and into some deep soul stuff, and some redemption stuff at the same time.
I love that. Yeah, really beautiful. Well, the CBS Innovation Lab, we did a series called Life on the Brink for Earth Day, and it was so impactful. I did a whale migration piece because if any of you are here in Southern California for the last few months, we saw orcas come into the waters in January and February, which is extremely rare, and they were eating the calves of the gray whales that were migrating. And we did this story, and I had no idea how many people reached out to me because they said, we have grown up on the coast of California watching these whales. They are a part of our life. This migration is a part of our story. And they said, we had no idea that this was even happening. And yes, it is the circle of life, but it's also the circle of a changing life and a changing ocean that we can help mitigate and get in the middle of. And so these personal stories are so impactful. Were you going to say something, Bonnie?
Yeah, I was just the stories obviously that we're telling through television, but even just the stories that we have in relationship to other people. I feel like when it comes to like our own local selves too, like you know yourself, you know the skills that you have to bring to the table, you have a unique personality, and you're going to have interests that are going to be different from someone else. So I feel like a lot of the time people could have kind of become more aware of the climate crisis because of something I've shared, but they've come at me from a totally different angle, and they're like, oh my God, now what shall I do? What is the one thing I can do? And there isn't one thing. Like, you know your thing. I can never tell that to someone else. And I think that's what's so important about telling these stories as well, is just showing on screen, like, oh yeah, they're kind of like me. Like, I could maybe do that. Or maybe there's someone in my community doing that. I feel like there's not a prescription to tell people, how to show up in your activism. So I think we all each have local stories and local ways that we show up to our action, and like that's so like a lovely, unique thing that we all can bring.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would to piggyback off of that, my ginger sister, I would say that, thank you for laughing. I would say that what we need more of are those local solutions, right? So we really need to highlight those local stories. I think that we need hyper-local solutions. And I love what you said too about pride. I think people have pride for their local place. And I think a lot about empathy and connection when it comes to climate. I think one of the biggest things when it comes to climate right now is we're asking a lot of people to care, and they don't even have a relationship to nature or to this place. So if we can connect people to even their local environments, their local parks, their local nature, you fight for what you love. So I think we need more of that in this world.
Yeah.
This microphone sounds good.
We should make a podcast.
This is
Actually,
weird.
filter on it.
Here we are, this panel, getting freaky. Who's going to match my
It wasn't freaky till you said the word freaky.
Yeah, right? Oh my God.
Freaky.
Don't invite a drag queen on a panel unless you want a girl.
I did want to say, though, in addition to what you were saying, is even local stories are so incredible, and I love how it relates to people in an individual level, but it also humanizes people in an area that you don't know. And so one thing that I really hate is how divisive our political culture is right now, and everyone thinks, oh, those people over there, those people in Virginia or Kentucky or wherever it might be, Florida. When I did the documentary Power Trip, I went to all of these states, and I met a single mom in D.C., and I met a grandma in the Navajo Nation, and family in rural Kentucky, and every single person wanted the same thing. They wanted to be able to be in control of how they power their lives, how they take care of their families, make sure that the planet is going to be a little healthier for their kids. Nobody was overtly saying, I want to poison my children. I'm sure there are psychos out there that are fine with that, but that everybody had the same thing that they were saying. But I remember what really humanized it for me was, I think there's a natural reaction for some people to say, it's them, I don't care about that, this is my story. And there was this one town we were in Kentucky where it was a coal town. And these coal towns, if anyone follows anything, they're dying. These towns have no work, nobody can provide for their families, they're getting desperate. And I realized these were good people who wanted to work hard, and they had been multi-generational coal miners. And at 40, the one gentleman at 50 had hundreds of his family and friends who had died because of the poisons and what they had breathed in. And he just wanted to make sure that they could have a way of living for their family. And he talked about his son and how his son, he wants him to get into a coal mine. And I said, really, after all of the data that's come out, everything that's come out, what if there was an opportunity for him to have a clean energy job or something? And there was this moment where he said, well, no, he would want him to do that. And then he's like, well, no, wait, no, I wouldn't want my son to die. And you actually saw the moment where he realized there was a better way. And the sad thing is, a week after that, the father died. And it was before the film came out. It was very emotional. But it showed me that even in these towns where they don't know what that path is, they just want to do what's right. And they're doing what they believe is right because all their information came from the coal companies.
Right. And it's that disinformation that sometimes can get polluted. And we are going into, like you said, I love that, Patrick, a precipice, a changing of the time now where we need to collectively make these changes now. And I know studying paleoclimatology, there's so much we can learn from the past and so much that people want to really hold on to those memories, but we need to forge a new path moving forward by learning from the past, by moving forward. When you're telling your stories, how important is it to empower people to know that they can make solutions, affordable solutions? They don't have to be wealthy. They don't have to have a lot of money to empower themselves and make these climate solutions, each and every one of them in their everyday lives. Bonnie, I loved your book, Go Gently. You talk a lot about the small things that people can do and the smaller impacts that people can have. I loved your series, Jonathan, on Genius Home, on affordable solutions as well that everyone can do. Talk a little bit about how important it is to empower an individual who might not have a lot of money to make these changes, but make them realize that they can, and almost those changes are more impactful than the big ones.
Yeah, kind of similar to what you said, like looking, I feel, I say a bit in my book, this idea that, a lot of these things we're looking to the past really for ways that haven't been too forgotten. I mean, maybe 2 generations above, like just to think of my grandparents and the kind of way that they cherished what they had, and if something was broken, they mended it, they sewed the button back on, they gave value to the materials in their home because firstly they, probably took a lot of hours of working to own them, but also just they saw them as kind of, they had reverence for them. And I feel like we've lost that when it comes to materials. Like we don't name the materials when we hold up a microphone, whereas, there's obviously loads of things in here that's probably been in mind to make this microphone. So yeah, I feel like I like that idea that we don't really have to reinvent the wheel. I know there's lots of amazing technologies and things that are very kind of new and exciting, but also it's just a way of being, I think, that can be just about remembering these ways, and also obviously connecting with so many communities and cultures that haven't ever lost this relationship. We have, but there are many people that we can be in conversation with that are keeping this is alive. It's not a history. It's a current and future reality for so many people still. So it's listening to those people and even speaking to our grandparents or our parents, or really skill sharing and bringing that back as a way of being.
We live in a very disposable culture, and I find that can be sad at times, because I loved we grew up in a ranch, and you literally, well, we also did not come from any means, so we had to make things work and had to fix things ourselves. But what I think is good for people to know is you don't have to jump in and have the new EV or have the new technology at home, the new furnace, whatever. You don't have to feel like it's got to happen now, because the one good thing is, at least in the home space, it's inevitable. We are electrifying homes. The technology is better, the data is better, we can mitigate, the blackouts that happen in Texas do not need to happen with technologies that exist today. You don't have to have carbon monoxide in your home. All of these things, they don't need to happen. So we're gonna get there. But the more people who adopt, the cost comes down on these technologies, which is great. But even with that, you don't have to do a major renovation in order to have an impact at home. Tiny, small thing. Easiest stocking stuffer this holiday, Bonnie's book. Boom. Million things you can do right there. So many great ideas, content online that shows you stuff you can do. And guess what? Your kids love it. They are like the advocates for this stuff. So have a fun thing with the family. Find some things that work for you, whether it's in the food space or, swapping out light bulbs, whatever it is, and just make it a weekend project.
Our food system, we all eat every day, and our food system is one of the biggest impacts on our climate. And we can make better choices. If we have better information, we can eat less ultra-high processed foods, we can eat more vegetables, we can eat better seafood that is better raised. We can ask questions about where our fish, where our seafood, where our meat, where our products are coming from. Those are really important things that you can do. And just asking and starting to ask questions when you go into restaurants, starting to ask questions, that's a step forward. And making, as the scientist said in our clip, eating more plants and eating the right kinds of seafood can have a massive impact immediately.
And much more than even an EV vehicle is what she said, which is incredible. And I think education is so key. And that's what we're all here to do, right? We're here to educate and empower individuals so that it can open up a whole new world for them, so that they can really feel like they can move forward and do the things that are necessary. And last week we had this amazing impromptu Vimeo discussion on our connection to nature, and a lot of you have already touched on to that, and it was so beautiful, and I thought we have to talk about that tonight. You brought up the importance of nature and learning from nature, learning from the Mother Earth, and for those of you where that resonates with you, can you speak to me more about what we can learn from embracing nature for climate solutions in this context?
I think Patty said it earlier, you fight for what you love. You love what you know. And for me, I grew up in Washington, D.C., late 70s, early 1980s. Single mom, a lot of stereotypical, statistical events in my early life. Murder of my father at a young age. So it reads like a tragedy if you're looking for tragedy. And my mother more than made up for my father's absence in so many ways, and her own path to some semblance of freedom in a land very much orchestrated to deny that to great numbers of us was through nature. It was her memory of her time with her grandparents out on the land. It was her invoking the spirit of her grandfather in my birth through my literal name that helped build a bridge which this country was designed to collapse, right? The Grade D infrastructure is on purpose. And that's an ancestral bridge that a lot of us have suffered through. So being a young little scout, riding my bike, because mom said, go outside and come in before the lights come on, going on camping trips and hikes, and none of the other moms on the block were doing this. They thought my mom was out there. She was a little extra. And they're like, take our kids too. They're like, we don't know what Miss Nita's on, but it seems to be working. Take Reggie. Take Dwayne. Take Kevin. Take all. So you got this little gang of black boys. Gang's probably not the right word in this context. A gaggle of
That's a very gay
guys.
Word. Yes, a gaggle.
Group.
A
Group.
grouping of young Negroes who are, the surface layer of our reality is pretty challenged. The mayor's literally on TV smoking crack at this time. There's police raids, there's shootings, there's all this stuff, and there's Rock Creek Park right there. And it leads to the creek, and you can get out of town. You can go down to ride your bike to Monticello and learn about your ancestors to the Benjamin Franklin family. Like, there's a lot of ways to rethread the narrative of this place. But for me, the nature part was a path to freedom that has been so denied. And the relationship with nature in particular for black people was a torturous one, right? It's the scene of the crime. It is a forced labor field, is a killing field. And we were brought here, ripped from our own relationship to land, helping seed relationship to land here, creating foods that are American now, but were essentially African. And so to heal that relationship and reconnect with land is, as Louis Hina, who was a Zuni indigenous man I was on the Rio Grande with, said, when you heal the land, you heal yourself. When you heal yourself, you heal the land. And so there is a cycle of regeneration that benefits all parties in this loop.
That's beautiful. Now, I find it really interesting that all of you have taken very different routes to have your stories and projects realized and come to fruition. So from traditional mainstream television to public broadcasting to producing your own series independently. How did all of you end up taking all these different routes with your shows? And do you have any advice for the audience about what pathways they could take to get their stories made?
Can I go first? Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. So yeah, I feel like for anyone here that maybe is more like a student in the space or younger, I just want to encourage you to embrace your identity and your uniqueness and your difference, because it is so fucking needed in this world. Climate can be a space for possibility, for potential, for seeing diversity as our greatest strength. And I just want to encourage you to just do that and chase that, and that's going to lead to the best stories being told. And also to answer your last question too, and looking at Mother Nature as a leader, nature favors bravery always. So I want to encourage you to be brave, because that is needed far more too. I think there's so much we can learn from her. Shout out Mother Nature. And she's incredible, and I think that we are incredible, and we often forget, and I felt so thankful as a part of our series to learn from so many indigenous people that we are not separate from nature, we are nature. I think we've really forgotten that in the creation of the other that we were talking about, that creation of the them over there versus us. High School Musical, we're all in this together. We got to do this shit. But I just want to encourage you to just chase it. If you would have told me 5 years ago that I could intersect drag and the environmental movement, I would have told you are batshit crazy. And now there's a community of more than 1 million people joining me being very gay outside. So build it and they will come. Because there's people out there that really need that space and that want that space, especially in the environmental movement. I mean, y'all, let's be honest. We've had to take an environmental movement that's been very white and straight and cis and bring it to where it is now. But we need you, especially younger people, to just really take it to that finish line. I can't believe I just used a sports analogy. What is my brain right now? Am I even gay? But we need you to take it there. And I'm really excited to do that with you all and to highlight your story. So if you have a story you want to bring into this world, you have a friend in me, and I would love to fuck shit up with you. So that is me.
Fuck shit up!
We've got to do it. We simply must.
And I think it's so important for people to know too that all of these messages are needed. It doesn't have to just be the serious, more emotional tone. It doesn't have to be something that's just funny or comical. I loved that sizzle for that show that played before us here, because it does take all of those messages and all of those voices. And for us, that's what we said is, even when we got into just the home renovation game, every show out there, they took themselves so seriously, and designers were using terms that no human uses. And I was like, I wouldn't want to listen to this or do this. Can we try something a little different? Can we just have fun. And then we realized when people are laughing and having fun, they actually let their guard down a little and they actually absorb what you're saying a little bit more. And we've built an entire brand out of just showing people that you can be a decent, normal, fun, loving person and actually do things that are good for the planet and good for people. And it turns out that all of those things are also good for business. So we've said to anyone out there who is producing television, anybody who's producing content digitally, just do what you want, what you're passionate about. Make sure you're authentic to yourself, and you will see more movement and more eyes than you will if you try to pretend to be something else.
I would also
Totally agree.
say,
Thank you, one person.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love you.
It was the best person.
It was the best.
The best person.
I would also say seek out partners. So Hope in the Water began as a part of an impact campaign that was by a group called Fed by Blue. Jennifer Bushman, who's here today, came to us to help change the narrative around blue foods and the blue food movement, the raising of seaweed, the farming of water, sustainable aquaculture, practices, setting aside parts of our oceans for protection. And we came with all these themes and brought in science partners. So our science partner was the Stanford Blue Food Assessment and the University of Stockholm. They have several hundred scientists who are at the forefront of climate science and our ocean environments and our fisheries. And then bringing in partners, creative partners. Brian Peter Falk, our director, who was here today. Bringing in great, people who think alike, and it's about making partnerships and finding it. Ultimately, we had to get money. So then there's that part about raising money. Harrowing experience. I don't know how many, it is just fucking horrible. But there are people out there who have the money who want to help tell these stories. And we centered our stories around community and local stories. We wanted to tell the stories of really inspiring characters after the doom scrolling of the past few years and of all the narratives that are out there. We really believe that there are so many people who have really incredible stories that just aren't being told. You can't find them anywhere. And our team interviewed hundreds of people. We have a whole library, so anybody who wants to fund season 2 and season 3, we're here. But it's about partnership. So if you have a story idea, if there's something that you really are passionate about, like he said, follow that passion and then seek out like-minded partners because they're out there, but it's not easy. We found a home at PBS, and one of the reasons we wanted to go there rather than a commercial network was it allowed the impact campaign to really flourish. So we'll be in 90% of the US schools with curriculum not only in STEM, but in business, built around the stories. 90% of the schools, K-6 through 12, we're selling the program through Blue Ant, our international partner. Our goal was not to make money on the film, it was to get it into as many countries. We just sold to Hong Kong, we just sold to Spain. We have about 70 other territories who are reviewing and looking at it right now. So our goal is to be everywhere on the planet with this show. And having partners like Baratunde and Martha Stewart and Shailene Woodley and David E. Kelley and Andrew Zimmern. It took a lot of people to put that together. It's exhausting, but it was worth it in the end. And I think when someone tells you no, just say thank you very much and move on and go to the next one. But it is about finding partners because we're all in this together and there's so many talented people out there. You guys are all part of that community. So that is my number one message, and you find a way. And we're doing shows too that are $100,000 an episode shows on the Outdoor Channel, which is the reddest of red audience. But we're telling stories about sustainability and about, healthy cooking and healthy eating. And we're doing that sort of subversively on really low budgets, but we're able to tell those stories and make that work. And that's what I'm really proud about what we're doing. But it's all about the partnership.
So if everybody could
We're
pass
not
a $20 bill forward right now,
Yes.
we're going to fund right now the next season.
It's so worth
Right.
it. I told Patrick I only watched the first 3 episodes, and I said, "Where's the others?" And he goes, "That was it." And I said, "No, that cannot be it. We need more." It was so incredible and so base. I mean, it was just so touching to watch these individual stories, and just to bring the kids into it. Our future generation is incredible. I just listened to my 12-year-old son, who's so impassioned about moving forward and protecting the future for everybody, so much more than any grown-up that I've ever talked to. And those are the children we need to meet. I do over 200 school talks a year, and if you think you're talking over their head, you're not. I tell them about this incredible technology. We launched a new satellite today, a new weather satellite called GOES-U, and it's the last in a fleet of 4 satellites that observe the weather like never before, observe the planet like never before. And to me, as a meteorologist, if people can't see the extreme weather that is happening right now, I mean, in every single part of the planet, and not know that it's somehow connected to these changes, it's unreal to me. And I go and I talk to the schools and they're like, well, that's why more fires are happening. That's why we have more tornadoes in our town. That's why the hurricanes are getting stronger, because they need the fuel from the warm ocean waters from a kindergartner. And so that is what inspires me to go talk to this next generation. And I feel like, especially if you can do that, and you can do that in your programming as well, and touch them and show something like even Hope in the Water, because they can understand. Never underestimate our future generation, no matter how young they are. They're incredible.
Question for you, Marina.
Yes.
Does your 12-year-old want to be president?
I don't know if I want him to be president. I will not urge that. I will urge him just to be the incredible voice that he already has, and just to be him. And like you said, Patty, it's incredible. So many people want to try to fit into a mold. Do not fit into that mold. I was the only girl in my atmospheric science classes at UCLA. I was the only girl. Wow. 25 years ago, I was the only girl in the program. And I had a teacher actually ask me to move to the back room because he said that I was annoying him in the front row. And I said, absolutely not. So for me, thank you. And that was only 25 years ago, right? Yes. And so I'm saying that don't move into a corner, don't move into the back row. Tell your story, tell what's important to you, tell what makes your heart soar and your heart fly, and that story is going to be amazing no matter who produces it, who writes it, who puts it together, especially if it's unscripted.
Yeah.
Can I shout out something that I see in Bonnie that I think Bonnie does so well as a part of getting stories made is Bonnie listens. I think it's so rare to listen, and Bonnie, throughout every interview we did with our show, is so good at asking questions and truly listening to people, and I think that's the way to get a story made, is to oftentimes listen more than we speak. Yeah. Bonnie, do you have anything you'd like to add now? I'm asking you to speak. Oh my gosh.
Also good dating relationship advice too. Yeah.
And they did this independently, folks. I mean, Bonnie and Patty did this independently, which is so brave.
Right, yeah, thank you. I mean, there's so many different ways to make and, capture stories. I feel like just in terms of like this idea of, everything, when I think about what led me here right now, there's so many different kind of weird alleyways and paths I've gone on. And at times they can feel like, you make something, you put your heart into it, and you don't get that sort of full circle sense of something that you were looking for. But then you do have those moments where everything comes together, and you realize that all those little projects and stories, even ones you just toyed with, brought you to those moments where you are able to actually find co-creators and collaborators and people want to do things with you. And, filmmaking and the world that we're in, and television and storytelling in any sense, can be lonely at times. And I think it's so important in those moments to go to an event, go to a community event, go and call someone up and ask if they want to make something together. I just feel like without collaboration and like Patty says, listening to other people, like there is no story, there is no reaction if there isn't that. So I feel, and don't be just know that it's all leading to something, even if in that moment. For me, so many moments, in my career felt like, directionless, but I've known that I've had real intention. So it's lovely when things come together like this TV show that I'm just so proud of.
I have one more thing I'd like to add, which is I feel like something that I see people I really look up to do, especially in this space, is another thing I see nature doing all the time, which is moving at the speed of trust. I think that's how to get things done. And I think we very rarely do that. We very rarely build the trust before we have to go make these projects and do these things. And what I really loved in our project and other projects where I felt heart, it's always been moving a little bit slower, taking time to get to know one another. I think it's a very lost art form. And I think it just makes everything better. It's the secret sauce. So make time for humanity in your projects and for, moving at the speed of trust.
Thanks
you have
for
the
giving out
greatest one-liners of anyone I've ever spoken on a panel with. If I could have a calendar of all these one-liners every day, I'll peel it back.
It'd be like
He's gonna steal them
inspirational
from you, Patty.
posters in your 7th grade classroom, But just a photo of me,
I love it.
So here, as we're wrapping things up at the end, I've talked to a lot of you individually about what drove you to make these stories, to make these climate connections with individuals and with communities. And we'll start with Bonnie, because we had a lovely conversation last night about what started you to become an environmentalist and a lover of this planet Earth. And just like in a few words, just what each of you bring to the table and what you just absolutely fell in love with in the first place.
Yeah, I guess on the broad sense, it was just witnessing an environment that I loved and a coast that I spent a lot of time on. So that, again, that listening to your environment and witnessing changes and kind of being curious as I was as a teenager to understand the kind of why. And I think further to like more our current time of the TV show, I really was basically wanted to have a TV show that helped us to fall in love with the human species once more, and that is really what I feel like we achieved. I just feel like every single person just gave so much of themselves and said just such wonderful things that just were like, how can you not love us? We're told that we're the problem, but I think if you tell us that we're the problem, then we're going to kind of wash our hands of it and be like, well, I should just kind of, sit on the sidelines here and let this be. But for millennia, humans have been stewards on this earth. It hasn't just kind of happened. There has been like large scale kind of conscious ways that we've interacted with our environment. So yeah, I think it's like empowering people to feel that they can make a difference in the scale that they want to.
I think it's such a privilege that we have to be able to tell stories, and when people are willing to share their stories with us so that we can share them, that's such a privilege, and you don't want to waste that. You want it to have some meaning, to do the right thing, to not be an asshole. And I think that's what, I take that very seriously, and everything that we do. You don't want to waste it.
You are the sweetest asshole I've ever met, though. Yeah.
Thank you.
And for our shows as well, it's the same thing. So we've just completed our 650th episode of our shows, and that's 650 families that we've transformed their lives. And every time I hear the child of one of our families who's like, oh my gosh, this, I love this is so exciting, or I know they're going to take that positivity and they're going to take that hope and they're going to share that with their friends and their family. And I think of it, when it comes to climate and sustainability, it's the same thing for us. Is hope is such a powerful thing. It's very easy to get burdened with doom and gloom and all the messaging and the divisiveness that's out there. It's very easy to just say, oh, fuck it, and just, I want to give up, I'm tired of it. But there is so much to be hopeful for. And whether it's a kid who has, like you're saying with your 12-year-old, you were telling me stories about it, it's incredible. Our daughter, when she was 6, wrote a letter to our senator saying, you're messing up our oceans, get with it. And I was like, proud moment. Whether it's, somebody who's been dedicating their entire life to science and to helping, all of this content that we create, we're doing it to try and share hope. And it doesn't matter what realm it's in. I think a hopeful person is somebody who will also use their voice to better their environment and better the community around them. So that's why we do what we do.
Thank you. My motivation is my mother, my literal mother, and my collective mother, our collective Mother Earth. It's a pretty dope planet. I don't know if you've looked around at the other ones. Pretty trash.
Not good.
No atmosphere, can't really breathe out there. And so just the A/B test is pretty obvious in favor of this one. And I think what has kept me motivated, it's a bit of a contradiction, like the ability to hold the contradiction, to challenge my own assumptions of other and put myself in places or in different ways of being in places that I would not have otherwise encountered. It's a real privilege. It's a great acknowledgement to learn in this experiential way and to try to transfer that learning. The deepest contradiction is in balance with the hope. And there is a lot of loss. Like, we have severely undermined our own abilities to live in this habitat. And a lot of people who had nothing to do with it are paying the price.
Yep.
And they will continue to if we stopped right now because of the momentum, because things are baked, pun intended, but they're baked in. So the acknowledgement of that loss is important, to not gaslight about that and just be like, yo, we got to mourn. We have to hold accountability. We have to have ritual and recognition of the loss. And there's some dope stuff being born. And so it's like this funeral and baby shower at the same time that is a very honest way of trying to deal with this moment. Yes, we have great opportunities and great possibilities, and we're going to lose more species, more people, more communities, more habitats. And so to be able to try to hold that in this, as I've just learned this phrase, this non-dual way, is a real motivator for me, because it challenges my own simplistic mind of good and bad, of left and right, of up and down. It's just everything is everything. Lauryn Hill said it.
Yeah, I really like that.
That's why you
Yes.
cast Baratunde
That's
Thurston
why
in anything
Baratunde
you're
is there.
doing.
Yes.
That's exactly why.
And I can attest, I did forecasting for Mars often. It is a desolate, awful planet. You do not want to go there. It is cold, it is miserable, and I can definitely.
But there are some people I would
I was gonna say, can we
encourage to
send
go
them
there. And it turns out they want to go.
Yeah,
So just let them.
This one is so much more beautiful, so much more special to protect. Patty.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no Mars, please. But I love what you said about being grounded in this reality and kind of this duality often. I think that nature shows me that two truths can exist at once. In fact, a million can. And I think for me, what keeps me motivated and going is knowing that, okay, this is going to be very deep, but I hope there's something you can glean from this, but inaction is an active choice. Doing nothing is doing something. So I would rather try to do something than nothing at all. Because if I do nothing, they win. The powers that be win. And if I can do something, well, then I know that at least something else is possible. And I think that doing something often leads me to other people that inspire me to do something. And I think specifically for queer people in the climate movement, we know how much community and queerness and leaving behind binaries, like you're talking about a right or wrong or this or that or them versus us, how much that can really save us. And nature for me was always my safe space growing up as a queer person, and I lost that a lot because of a lot of powers in this planet that want me to believe that I am unnatural and wrong when I am nothing but natural. Nature is so gay. Mother Nature is a lesbian. I'm done talking.
I love that. and on that note, Patty, I know, this is not a secret that anyone doesn't know that you're an amazing performer. Am I right? Yes. So is there any chance we can persuade you to get us to show us something?
Show you something?
Yeah.
So you want to match my freak? Okay. Yeah, do y'all want a little drag performance?
Yes.
Okay, you're seeing all my backup dancers, okay? So
Forgive us now.
At some point they're gonna guess in this, but I'd love to perform a little number for you all about rain. Are y'all down? Okay, great. This is going to be a very acoustic drag performance. This is going to be a very participatory drag performance. I only do drag if you are screaming the words back at me, okay? And raise your hand if this is your first drag performance. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. Yes. Welcome. It is very gay here. So I'm going to perform a little rain mega mix for you. We have some prop umbrellas. This is going to be crazy. Panelists, let's give it up for the panelists. Come on, for our incredible host.
Thank you.
Yes? Do you all want to sit right here in the front in these little reserve seats? Alrighty, let's do this. Okay, I'm going to put this mic down, grab an umbrella. Oh my gosh, there's steps with felt on them. This shit's crazy. Oh my goodness. AV crew, are you ready to turn this out? Are we gonna do this together? They're in the booth and I can't see them, so they're like, oh my gosh, hello.